falls in your heart, you can't get up, you can't stay down. You think this must be the end of the line, but I'm here by your side, holding on, holding tight. Come on friend, let's move on to a higher place. Jello, Oma ki sojo, Chibolu bori niwa, how bori don.
Accountability, consensus, responsiveness, and inclusiveness. The leader, not just talking, he's listening. Meet your governor. You're right to know.
All right, thanks a lot for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have this program every month. It's called Meet Your Governor. It's a platform where the people of Ekiti State have the opportunity to interact with the governor and to ask questions and seek clarifications in any gray area. I'm Kola Jumobi. I'm the lead anchor, and driving the program for the next 1 hour with me, I have two of my colleagues in the house. Let me welcome the only lady in the panel. She's Ronke Kolawole. She's from the Nigerian Television Authority at Ekiti. Ronke, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, Kola. It's nice being here.
And the next gentleman we have on the panelists is Rotimi Ojomoyela. Rotimi is the chairman of the Correspondence Chapel of the NUJ in Ekiti State. Rotimi, thanks a lot for joining us.
Kola, thank you. It's nice being here.
And collectively, on behalf of all the participating stations, we say thank you, sir, Mr. Governor, for making time and for walking up and living up to your billings as a man who has promised to show accountability, responsiveness, and all-inclusiveness in governance. And that is the essence of this program. Mr. Governor, thanks a lot for coming.
Well, good to be back here. Happy Good Friday.
Yes, it's indeed a special edition today because it coincides with Good Friday, when Christians all over the world are remembering the crucifixion and the death and resurrection of our Lord Jesus over 2,000 years ago. So it's a special edition, Good Friday edition of Meet Your Governor. Once again, we thank you very much for joining us, and the numbers to participate when it's time will be scrolled on the screen. Right. All-inclusiveness, responsiveness, accountability, and openness are ideals that your government professes and is showing the way to go. And so this program is one of the mechanisms to ensure that. And I'd like to say that questions are not screened, and we always talk about issues that are burning in the plate of public agenda. So we begin with health. Health, they say, is wealth. Your deputy, Mr. Governor, Mrs. Fumiola Inga, has been out of public glare for quite some time, and this has led to a lot of speculations in some quarters, many quarters, some positive, some negative. Now that you're on the program today, we'd like to hear from you. What is the state of the health of the deputy?
Thank you, Kola, for that question. Let me start by saying that there is nothing to speculate about in the first place, because we were very transparent with the Ekiti people. The Honorable Commissioner for Information and Civic Orientation, you would remember, issued a statement to the media informing everyone that the Deputy Governor had taken leave to attend to her health. And that obviously speaks to what is going on, to the situation. Okay. Now, the Deputy Governor is a public officer. We owe Ekiti people information about her situation. That information we've made available to Ekiti people. There, of course, have been questions about what's the nature of her ill health, how long is she going to go for. The truth of the matter is, when one is not a doctor, you cannot predict accurately how long somebody who is ill would be out of circulation for. But the first thing is what we've done. We've opened up to Ekiti people. The second thing that is our duty is to ensure that our own portfolio, our responsibilities are taken care of, and that there is no gap in the work that she's been doing for the people of the state. And the third is to, of course, appeal to the good sense of our people. Our people are very compassionate. And when a thing like this happens, we believe in the power of prayers. We are Christians and Muslims, and we believe that God can heal. I mean, we will do our best to put the situation right, and we've done that. We continue to do that for the deputy governor. But it's only God that we depend on to ultimately cure whatever ailment we all suffer from. And anyone could be ill. So I really don't want this to be taken to the level of exaggeration. But when one is ill, it's also important, particularly if you're a public officer, to make that information public. And that we've done.
Right. We continue to join our faith with yours to pray for the speedy recovery of Her Excellency the Deputy Governor as soon as possible by the grace of God. Ronke, take it away.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Recently, you embarked on some international trips where you delivered lectures which cut across the challenges facing Nigeria as a country. And you also received a Samsung Award as the best governor. What are the benefits of this kind of a trip to an average Ekiti man?
Good question. You should also add that I deliver these lectures at home as well, including here at the university in Ado-Ekiti and last week in Lagos. First and foremost, people must not forget that I come from a profession. Politics is not my profession. Politics is a vocation that I have taken to because I want to serve my people. But ultimately, I am first and foremost an academic. And that's where I'm going to return to when I leave this job of serving our people at the partisan political level. So I just wanted to clear that air, because you have people who display a lot of illiteracy and issue all sorts of statements just to hear the sound of their own voices about Mr. Governor giving lecture here, doing this, there, he's not staying in Ekiti, he's going to Harvard. In the first instance, how many people get invited to an institution like Harvard to deliver a lecture? And I know that that rubs off positively on Ekiti. And you can see how it rubs off. The Economist magazine, one of the most respected magazines in the world, has just issued its special report on Africa. Only 2 states in this country got a positive mention in that special report: Lagos State and Ekiti State. The Economist is not given to pouring encomium on things that are not evidence-based. They have no reason. It's not a geographic publication. So the importance of my lectures, the lecture I gave at Harvard, for instance, talked about moving from the barricades of resistance to the veranda of power. What has been my experience as somebody who had spent the greater part of his life challenging bad governance, challenging military dictatorship as an activist, and who has now found himself on the other side of the table as an actor in governance. What are the lessons I've learned? What are the issues that have cropped up that I believe I want to share with an academic audience? What are the lessons in leadership and service for our own people, but also for an international audience? And that's what that was about. I don't know how or why Samsung decided to give me an award, just like I did not know why Leadership newspaper declared that I was Governor of the Year last year. For me, I have a job of work to do, and I'm just continuing with that work. I am somebody who is very skeptical about awards. I get tons of words that I just throw in the trash can in my office. And people approach me to come and take this award or take that award. The first question I ask is, how did you come about this decision? Why Fayemi and not another person? And more often than not, if I take an award, it is because I have been convinced that it is not just something done in order to be in my good books or in order to celebrate mediocrity. I take myself too serious for that. And it just so happened that I had business in South Africa. It wasn't that I went to collect the award in South Africa. I was also given a talk at the Ernst & Young conference on infrastructure. So that was the coincidence of interest. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have gone to South Africa to collect just an award, no matter how grand the award is. There has to be a purpose for it.
Rotimi.
Sir, Mr. Governor, sir, since you came to power, you've been talking to people, approaching multinational, non-governmental agency in order to make Ekiti an investment hub. Recently, we have problems of security, especially in Ekiti State, where armed robbers attack, every now and then. And we want to know what actually your government is putting in place to ensure that this is put in check. And also, as a rider to that question, sir, there have been cases of extrajudicial killing in Ekiti State. And there was an instance at Ilupeju where another graduate of 400 level student of Ekiti University was killed. And up to now, the police has not made any categorical statement on that issue. And they want to know, sir, what you are going to do, your government is going to do to ensure that adequate compensation is paid to this family and also to bring the culprit to book.
Thank you, Rotimi. In the first instance, you had reached a conclusion without even knowing the result of the investigation, because you're talking about compensation and you're talking about bringing people to justice. I don't know the result of investigation yet, but let me say to you that anyone who knows me and knows my background as a human rights activist will know that I would not condone extrajudicial killings and that I would insist on thorough investigation being undertaken on any case like that, whether it's a mere allegation or it's a factual matter. And that's precisely what I have done in this matter. The Attorney General is working with the police to get the result of their investigation. It's a police matter, and you know that police is really not a state body, it's a federal body. One of the things that I've asked them to do is a ballistic analysis of the bullet that was extracted from the body of the late Fashere chap, and they haven't come back to me with the result of that investigation. Once they come back, if the police is culpable, you can be sure I will insist on maximum penalty available within the law and on the statutes book to be applied to the person so concerned. And that leads me to your other question. A policeman was found to have been connected with one of the robbery incidents you referred to, the one that affected the expatriate from Kopek, a construction company along Ikere Road. And I can assure you that he had been apprehended now and is undergoing investigation and subsequent trial if the evidence before the police is sufficient enough to do that. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but suffice it to say that the police force, at least under the current commissioner, is serious-minded and committed. But there are also issues that we're dealing with. We do not have enough men on the ground in the police force in Ekiti. and there is pressure on even those that are there to be transferred to other parts of the country. So you're asking what I'm doing. I've met with the Inspector General of Police on this. I've insisted that we should at least have the full complement of the policemen who should be in Ekiti as a preliminary measure. I have also secured the approval of the Chief of Army Staff and the Chief of Defense Staff to put the military on the border, on the boundaries of Ekiti State. The reason for that is simple. Part of what we are experiencing, in my view, and based on investigation, is spillover effect from places like Kogi, where there had been some challenges with terrorist cells that had been uncovered in such places. And there is clearly, as we've also been reading in the newspapers, there is a redirection in the activities of such elements, which we're trying to nip in the. We don't want a situation where we will become a theater in the Southwest, and we're doing everything to make that impossible here. Some of those measures, you would understand, I cannot share on television, but I want to reassure our people that we are not sleeping on this matter. Finally, one of the reasons why we set up the Ekiti State Peace Corps is to provide complementary services to the police, because they know their communities. They're like the local vigilante, but which is supported by government in order to operate in localities and be accountable to both their communities and to the government. So that there are things, and I'll give you an example. When we were having problems, incessant problems on Adoini Igede Road, one of the measures we had to take was to bring in local vigilante and OPC onto that matter, in addition to increasing the patrol vehicles on the road. And within a short space of time, they disappeared. It's obvious that some of those elements are the ones that are relocated to other places, like Ado Ilawe, where we now have regular patrols as well, or Ado Ijo. Part of the problem we are encountering, sadly, is that Ekiti has some of the best network of roads in the Southwest today, and that provides a quick getaway for armed robbers. So what we have done in order to make life better and to make our roads motorable appears to be, if you like, detrimental, but I don't want to see it as detrimental. We just have to take extra precautions to ensure that our people are safe and secure, because that's my number one priority. That's why I'm governor. If I cannot provide security and safety for our people, then it's a challenge that I must confront squarely. And the security agencies are working with us. You will see me on television with civil defense operatives last week, when after they finished their training, those who are going to be carrying weapons amongst them, and I was admonishing them to be disciplined with the way they use the weapon. It's also an additional measure. I don't believe that this should be the only way to deal with this problem, but right now we have to use a whole range of deterrent measures in order to protect our people.
All right, haven't gotten safety assurance from Mr. Governor. We take a break. All right, before we take the very first break on the program, when we ask you, what would you ask the governor if you have the opportunity to interact with him, I'd like to ask a quick one, which is a rider to the question Ronke asked vis-a-vis the Investors Forum that you had in South Africa, where you announced the proposed establishment of a cargo airport in Ekiti State. And it generated a lot of comments and attention from people back at home. So I'd like you to clear the air, Mr. Governor. Is the cargo airport, does it foreclose the intention of a heliport as stated in your 8-point agenda? And then on the other side, some people feel the cargo airport is not what we need for now in Ekiti. What informed this decision?
Well, it's always interesting to listen sometimes to our people misconstrue you when you say things. I did not say that we're going to have a cargo airport exclusively. I said that the only way that I could justify an airport in our state is to ensure that that airport serves the purpose of cargo lifting rather than just passenger airlift. Because we have an airport 30-40 minutes away that also carries people, and it is underutilized by all accounts. So why do you want to have another one here? Is it just as a status symbol? And we've taken steps. We've conducted a study. We had a committee chaired by the esteemed elder Chief Afe Babalola to look into whether we need an airport, and if we do need an airport, what should be the purpose of the airport? And one of the conclusions they reached in the study was that since we're increasing commercial agricultural activity in the state, we need an outlet for it. And if you look at where the airport is going to be, that is where the food export conditioning center is going to be. That is where the silo is. The airport is just after Afe Babalola University, around the Bemo axis. So it's a very logical connection with the drive that we're making in the agriculture sector. But it does not foreclose a helipad. The heliport we promised that it would be at Ikogosi. So that people who come to Ado-Ekiti can be airlifted by a helicopter to Ikogosi rather than, or some might even decide to come direct to Ikogosi without necessarily going through the Ado airport. We have to think about our future, not just about today. If it is just about today, paying salaries and doing all the standard things we do, societies don't function that way, especially if it is interested in progress. We have to be futuristic in our agenda.
All right, thank you very much for shedding light. We take the very first break on the program. If you had the opportunity to interact with Mr. Governor, what would you ask him? Take a look.
Transformational agenda represents our vision for a greater Ekiti, where the business of governance is not only transparent, but accountable and responsive. Where we create optimum opportunities that will improve citizens' lives and attract investments. Where quality education is a right, not a privilege. Where good and cheap health care is not a luxury. Where our land is evergreen and no single child goes to bed unfed. That is our agenda. Just keep faith.
The governor is trying in almost all things, but I would implore him to see to the position of the retirees. There are some money they have been owing us, and we are still looking forward for more. He's been paying our this thing regularly, but we still need it.
Wọ́n ti kó àwọn iṣẹ́ bí omi, àdúgbò. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ní láti irú Adébáyọ̀ báyìí lọ sí Àdéhùn lọ sí Báwà, Òṣomi. I want to tell about the road that linking Omisojana to Shije Ajebandele Road. That's the fourth road that our governor is award and that flag up. And since that time, they never finished the road. They abandoned the road there.
Owó àdúgbò tá ń gbà yìí, ìyá mi ò rí gbà, kò lẹ́sẹ̀, kò lè rìn. Ṣùgbọ́n dé kàn dé bá tú ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì ṣe àwọn owó àdúgbò.
And the place that we are selling goods to stop is highly disturbed, and we didn't know the reason, because the Yeroja is the only person that we know that can defend us there, but we didn't know how we can move. to stop the disturbances, or let them show us any other place for us to steal.
This post office is not viable to us because we are doing road here. Now, before you open bed here, all these touts, all this we collect 500 naira before we open bed. They don't give us another place to stay.
Gbogbo àwa lọ́jà àríbi táwọn o èmi bá ní mo kiri ká àgàdàgàdà ya olóbì àlòsàn àríbi títajà mo fọlọ́n bẹ́ ayé àrẹ wàhálà àrí ìṣòro lórí ọmọ rẹ̀ òun gẹ́ àrí ìṣòro àbá wàhálà kò lórí àléfà rẹ̀ o kẹ́ bá wa wáyé káríbi tátajà.
Nípa kẹ̀kẹ́ márùwá ni mo fẹ́ sọ fún gómìnà ni mo fẹ́ kábà wá dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gómìnà wa Fáyẹmí ìyẹn kẹ̀kẹ́ tó kó jáde kẹ̀kẹ́ Fáyẹmí gẹ́gẹ́ bó ṣe wúlò fún gbogbo aráàlú ṣáàdúrà fún wọn nípa bó ṣe bá a kó lọ́kọ̀ wá lọ́pọ̀ yanturu tó jẹ́ kí ìrọ̀rùn dé bá àwọn aráàlú.
Ọ̀nà omiṣàjànù ibi ilé epo tuntun yẹn sí sọmọ ìwé ńlá bọ́lọ́kadà ṣe ń kọlu àwọn ọmọ kéékèèké àtàgbàlagbà onímọ́tò àtọlọ́kadà ọ̀nà yẹn ò dára rárá, ó yẹ ká bá wa ṣe bọ́ọ̀bù sí mọ́jẹ́ parí títì yẹn tó yẹ ká bá wa ṣe bọ́ọ̀bù sí àti nípa ọ̀nà èkúté náà ọ̀nà sáìdì ilémùrè sí ti yẹ sí ọ̀nà ẹ̀bẹ̀ wọn bá wa dá sọ̀nà ẹ̀bẹ̀ rárá. Ayé ìjọba á dáa afọlọ́ǹbẹ̀yìn ní àmọ́ ogun àmọ́sẹ̀gún ọlọ́kadà yẹn bá wá bí kó ń sí wọ́n ti bá yé èrò jẹ́ ìrákẹ̀ lọ́sibítù gẹ́gẹ́ bá rí ẹni jẹ́nẹ́rà ẹni náà tẹ́kọ̀ọ́ lòmúrì yìí sùn ìrákẹ̀ nínú ilé á lè yẹ ìkàn dáwọ́lẹ̀ ní àmì ọ̀sẹ̀ mi bá ẹjọ́ afọlọ́ǹbẹ̀jọba ìjọba rẹ̀ á dáa káyà ló bẹ̀ lọ́gọ́rùn-ún ọdún ẹnu rádùn àmọ́dé àwọn ọlọ́kadà wọn ti pèrò ikú o wọ́n ti lànìyàn mọ́lẹ̀ lónìí bá wọn nìyàn mẹ́rin láti ọmọ ọgbọ́n gbó ọmọ kún yẹ̀ síba ìjàre bá kọ́lọ́kadà wọn kó libura afọlọ́ǹbẹ gómìnà afọlọ́ǹbẹ yín.
All right, thanks a lot for staying on the line with us. It's Meet Your Governor if you're just joining us, and because it's a people's program, you just listened and watched the Vox Populi, which raised a lot of public concerns. So we take it away from the issues that were raised in that Vox Pop. Mr. Governor, the position of retirees who are being owed provision of water, road abandonment, social security, the Uwarubo post office area, shops, the market women, and the Omishojano Road.
First on the retirees, I'm glad that the man was fair. He was very objective with his comments. He didn't say he wasn't getting his entitlements as a when due. He said that they are expecting some additional payments because of the 6%. There's a 6% approval that they got at the federal level that they expect to be applied at the local level here. I don't want to go into the intricacies of that. I just want to say that, one, they know that we've approved it. I've met with the Nigerian Union of Pensioners on this, but I've also opened the books to them that, look, this is where we are with Ekiti State finances. It's not a case of not wanting to pay. It's a case of not having enough resources to pay you. But the one that we pay, we'll make sure you get it regularly. The second issue that affects retirees is their gratuity, because it's on a first come, first served basis. Many of them don't get their benefits immediately after they leave service. Some stay as far as about 3 months or 6 months because of the sequencing. But I've only just asked the Pension Commission to find a mechanism that we can use to expedite the payment of gratuity. And we're going to start that by April, so that many more people would qualify when the payment. So inevitably we have to increase. I think we pay about 150 or 200 million every month now. But things have been particularly difficult in this period because most of the people who joined the civil service in 1976, when the state was created, 76, 77, they've just come right round to the 35 years of service. So they are all retiring almost in one fell swoop. And that has been a burden. But ultimately, the issue is we want everybody to go on contributory pension scheme so that whatever we put aside for it and whatever the civil servants themselves put aside can be combined to form the pension fund that would form the basis of the payment that would subsequently be used for them. So that's really the situation with the retirees. Okay. On the question of road, there was a discussion of the omission Jano road. That's absolutely correct. We awarded the omission Jano road May 2011, and the contractor has been very, very bad. There's no other way to describe it. I think the road was being handled by JP Sigma, and we are in the process of actually revoking it and re-awarding it to another contractor that can take it to Ajibandele Ikere road. I would just appeal to the people living there that I'm not unmindful of it, and I know that some of them have experienced flood there. Yesterday I received information as to what happened there, and I asked the Public Works Corporation to go and take some remedial measures just to address that particular problem. But ultimately, we need to fix the road and ensure that it gets right through, linking up Ikere Road with the Omission Jano Road. On social security, yes, the lady mentioned that her mother, who is at home, has not been receiving it. I'm sure that's the case with many people. We have not at any time claimed that everybody who is entitled gets it, but it's a means tested system. Some go off the scheme. Some are the paycheck that I signed this month for the social security benefit for the elderly, for example. I have it on the records there that about 35 people died in various communities. So we clearly have to remove that. And there has to be a process of also increasing those who come on the scheme. I'll just urge her to be patient, and we would get to the point of serving our mother. Once she is qualified and she doesn't have someone looking after her, she looks like a contradiction to me, though, because anyone who knows our processes for the social security benefit, if you have a son or a daughter who can look after you, you are not qualified because you are not indigent. So it's the definition of indigent that people confuse. If you are a retiree on pension, or if you have children like me or you or Ronke who can look after you, then you are not likely to qualify. And if you know someone who has been mistakenly put on it and has children, and people are very proud of talking about their children, when our investigators go into these communities and ask, the questionnaire is very clear that, look, do you have children? Most people will say, yes, we have children. My child is a nurse in Abeokuta, or is a doctor in Lagos, or this. So, but normally we will take note of that in applying the social security scheme. All right.
Okay, let's have your question before we go to the text messages.
Thank you, caller. Your Excellency, not long ago you constituted the Elders Consultative Forum. Why?
Elders Advisory Forum.
Okay. So what do you want to achieve? And then the issue of representation, did it cut across any political or religious leaning?
Thank you, Ronke. You know, there's a standard Yoruba saying, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And it goes thus: if the hand of the elder cannot enter the god. Exactly. That's one. The same Yoruba people, our ancestors, would also say, Omodegbon, Agbagbon, Lafida Ilefe. So the essence, the import of that is that none of us is a repository of knowledge. Not the young exclusively, not the old exclusively. We need the benefit of the experience and wisdom of old age in whatever we do. Yes, we are in the computer age. We know things that our elders may not have had the advantage of knowing, but they also have experienced
life.
Many things. They've experienced life in a different manner, and they have a wider perspective that I believe I owe as a duty and responsibility as governor in this state to benefit from. So that's the essence of having an elders advisory forum. And to the best of my knowledge, most of the people there are not even politicians. They are people who have distinguished themselves in various walks of life and are regarded by most Ekiti people as respected elders. If you talk of Chief Ogunlade, veteran broadcaster, former minister, former politician, if you like, you cannot say he's not a respected elder in Ekiti. If you talk of Mrs. Joyce Aluko, Professor Sam Aluko's wife, she's not, those two people are not in partisan politics. And the many like that, Chief Joel Babatola, you know, that is even, to call him an elder is an understatement. He is an institution of sorts. He's been there from the days of Chief Awolowo. So, and those are the criteria. Chief Deji Fason, Chief SB Falegon. These are people who have distinguished themselves in their fields and are now assisting with sometimes direct advice, sometimes unsolicited advice, because they know, they've been part of it, they've done that, they have things that can benefit the state. And that's essentially the reason why we've done that. It's not a political group, it's not a partisan group, but it also does not stop other elders forum. They have Ekiti Elders Council, for example, which is still operating. Some of the people in the Elders Advisory Council are also involved in the Ekiti Elders Council. We have a CN Elders Forum, for example, in my party, but they are not necessarily members in this wider advisory council, because I can reach them. I don't need them to be in any council if I need their advice on anything.
All right, Rotimi, hang on one sec. Let's just check out the text messages before we take your question. And the first SMS we're receiving today says, Your Excellency, please, sir, there is no geography teacher in my school, Government Science College in Ekiti. Since the core member teacher left, there has been no replacement. Please help us, sir. Thank you for renovating our school. That's from Odeyemi Taiwo. The next one, I'd like to draw your attention to, I'd like to draw the attention of the governor to the need to give definite and measurable policy direction to local governments on the implementation of the agricultural development agenda of the state government. That's from Abiola Williams in Ekiti.
Okay.
And the third one, good day, my amiable governor. 4+4 for sure. Well done for the good work you are doing in Ekiti State. Sir, please, in the name of God, kindly come to my rescue in the dental department of Ekiti State University Teaching Hospital. The condition of the department is in a deplorable state. Please just come and see things yourself. Sending your aides will be misleading. Okay, and lastly, sir, what is the fate of those people that own land at I can say that Olonda area, since it's not yet approved by the government? Who can we approach to get approval from Shola?
Let me start with Olonda, because it's one of these areas where people just take the laws into their hands. They just go build properties without certificate of occupancy, without building approval, and they expect government to shut its eyes and ignore this. And yet, what we're saying to such people is that government is interested in their safety, because these are not properly laid out areas. When erosion comes and flooding comes, they get affected, and then they ask for governor's rescue when they have not followed the proper rules and regulations. So the Ministry of Housing, Physical Planning and Urban Development has gone to meet with the Landlords Association there. They've held a series of meetings with them. Obviously, there are too many people there. So it is difficult for government to say we're demolishing all the properties there. What we're trying to do is regularize and also put the place in better shape for the environmental standards that is required in the area. And in order to do that, I believe there has to be a penalty. So they are being asked to pay, I think it's 100,000 naira averagely they're asking them to pay. So if the gentleman wants its building to be approved, he needs to take the normal measures of preparing the plan and making sure that there's a draftsman or an architect who does it for him, and approach the physical planning agency in the ministry for approval. They will give him all the detailed information that's required.
All right, the student at who complains.
The student at who needs a geography teacher, I would make a note of that and ensure that the Commissioner for Education sends relevant teachers for subjects in the school.
Okay, then the gentleman who wants you to visit the dental center.
I will visit the dental center. I won't tell you when I'm going to visit, but you can rest assured that I will come to the dental center to find out what really you mean by deplorable condition.
All right, so we've got a thank you text from nurses and workers at the teaching hospital, thanking you for stepping into the situation at the A&E and maternity ward. They say that government has purchased more beds for the maternity wards, and it's now a pleasure for women to have their babies, because the complaint came at the last episode of the program. So they're grateful, but they also wanted to address the shortage of staff in the teaching hospital, which will also go a long way to alleviate and ensure delivery of healthcare services.
We're working on that.
All right then. All right, we have a call on the line, I'm told. Good evening. Who is speaking and where are you calling from? Hello, sir.
This is Bayo calling from Ado.
Bayo calling from Ado. Please speak up a little bit.
Yes, sir. Please, I want to ask from the governor about the school fees of the land. 2 years ago, he told us the school fees will be deducted to 50,000 naira. And now we are paying about...
Bayo, you're barely audible. Can you please call back and speak up? Thank you. Yes, Rotibi, you have a question on water.
Yeah, yes, I'm particularly concerned about this.
Okay, hello. Hello, sir. Yes, good evening.
Yeah, please, Joseph on the line.
Joseph.
Please, I want to appreciate the visit our second school.
Joseph, I'm sorry, we can't hear you very well. We'd like to appeal to all those who want to call. The lines are open. It's your time to participate and ask questions, but please do so as audibly as much as possible. Thank you.
Yep. Sir, in Ekiti, sir, we have 4 dams, which one could say is at least enough to cater for the people of the state. Yet, sir, no water. In Ado, the water only is circulating in the whole Ado local government area. Now, there are a lot of satellite towns, no water there, and nothing is not running. And if, as a matter of fact, in some of the areas that the water was running before, it stopped running. So I want to know what you are putting in place to address this issue adequately and stop people from going to the stream to fetch water.
Thank you, Rotimi. The issue of water supply is something that I've addressed here repeatedly, and you would also recall that one of the primary focus of the current budget is water. But what needs to be done in order to fix the water situation in the state requires fundamental comprehensive surgery. It's not just palliatives. And that's what we're doing. You would notice if you go around the state, the laying of pipes all around the states, including to some of these areas you have talked about. That's not something that would happen overnight. We're quite mindful of the fact that Ado is not what it used to be 5-10 years ago. There are expanded communities. There are new satellite towns. I go to all sorts of areas. Along with that you just mentioned, Adere, Muferere side, Embassy Island. You have huge conurbations that have sprung up in Ado, and we cannot ignore the provision of services to those places. But it has to be structured. That's part of the problem I was talking about. These areas have not been provided for when people just descended on the areas and started building. The short-term measure that is being taken across the state, and you'll notice more of that between now and June, is to place boreholes, to dig boreholes around areas that are suffering from particularly bad shortage. But these are stopgap measures, as I said. They're not long-term fundamental measures. We are lucky. You were asking about our connections to international development agencies and all that. Ekiti is one of the 3 states that just got money for water resuscitation in the country. It's Ekiti, it's Rivers, it's Bauchi. Just like we're also one of the states that has benefited from the World Bank support on education, which of course we're already doing here. So the challenge is to bring Ero back to its full capacity. Right now, Ero supplies just about 25%. Ureje is currently undergoing refurbishment. We are also working in Itapaji, and Egbe is receiving attention equally. That's not to mention what we're doing in places, well, what we have done in places like Efon, like Idoile, like Okemesi, like Eriginion. Now we're going to be putting another water works in Igbaraudo and in a number of other communities. In Ikere is suffering particularly from bad water supply. So we're not unmindful of this, but I just want to appeal to our people, because water is critical to sanitation. I'm very, very concerned about that. But the problem of reticulation has to be resolved. Because it's not about the dams. Yes, the dams are there, but you need to get the water to the various communities. But I also think there's an issue of the governance of the water sector that we need to take a lot more seriously. We have a water corporation that hardly collects its own rent. And that's one of the things that we're dealing with now. We've developed a water master plan that includes ensuring that we grant autonomy to the water corporation so that it can run itself.
Okay. All right. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Femi Emmanuel. Kupoluyi Emmanuel. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, we can't hear you very well. All right, please try and call back. We still have just about 12-15 minutes to wind down on the program. Runke, before you take the next question, let's have some more text messages. This one is written by Tola Ogunshakin from Omo Ekiti, and he says, when will the Peace Corps start operation? That's a question. Then Ayeni Samson Oluwagbenga, he's a teacher in Fountain International High School at Ekiti, and he says distribution of laptops to students, teachers and civil servants is a good one from the governor, but he wants to know when it will be extended to teachers in the private education sector. The next one, newly recruited firefighters and paramedics want to know when their appointment letters will be given to them. And these last two text messages are related. Mrs. Femi Folademi Kikelomo from Ekiti Southwest Local Government is appealing to Governor Fayemi to implement CONHES salary scale for environmental health officers in the local government because their colleagues all over the country are enjoying the incentive. And the last one, shift duty allowance for all workers in the health sector, not only doctors alone, the pharmacists, all the nurses, and all those who make up the health sector want Mr. Governor to implement shift duty allowance for them.
Well, let me start with that caller. To the best of my knowledge, and I should know, Ekiti State pays shift duty allowance to all those who do shift duties. Okay. I won't say more than that. You may be a nurse, and if you don't do shift duties, you will not benefit from shift duty allowance. It's that simple. Two.
Mrs. Folademi.
Mrs. Folademi asked about when
environmental health workers will benefit CONHES like their counterparts all over the country.
Well, I'm not aware that their counterparts all over the countries benefit from CONHES. You know, I'm not a specialist in the civil service matters. Okay. I base what I do on the advice, which is often based on the decisions of the National Council on Establishment. That's the body that sort of controls what is done by civil servants. Okay. And I don't have the information that...
all right, just hang on, Mr. Governor, sir. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Silas, good evening. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, good evening.
Hello?
Hello, good evening, sir. We can hear you. Well, I'm sorry. It appears we are having a lot of issues with telecoms, and you can see the calls are coming in. I like to say again, because sometimes we get a lot of accusations that we screen calls. We can't and we do not screen calls. You can see that we're trying to get you on the line with Mr. Governor, but it appears that it's a network issue which is beyond us. Anyway, we try to ask as many questions that are troubling your mind. All right, Mr. Boyo Gunremi calling from Ado Ekiti. Let's see if we'll be lucky this time around. Hello, sir. Hello. Sorry. Yes, sir. Mr. Governor, you were talking about...
yes, I was talking about CONHES comments. For us, we don't have any issue with those who are qualified, but there is a basis for qualification. And you do not just convert yourself from a particular line of duty to another simply because you now hear that there is an incentive-based payment for those who belong to that. I mean, there has to be a process, a career progression, a training package that leads you to qualification for those things. And if those things are there, there's no reason why government would deprive anyone. Those who we know are qualified to benefit from it, we ensure that they get it.
Right.
On the Fountain International...
Okay, just hold on, sir. Hello? Hello? Tony from Ekiti. Sorry, we can barely hear you. Sorry, we can hear you. We can hear you. All right. ID, Idowu, please, if you take the calls, get the message and find a way of passing it to us in the studio.
That's it.
All right, so that we don't disrupt the thought and the flow of the
I think that's what they should do. They should just collect it.
So ID, please, once you get the call, since you can hear them, get the message and pass it to us in the studio. We have just about 10 minutes to wrap up. Yes, sir, you were just about...
Fountain. Well, you know, my pledge when I was campaigning really relates to public schools. Okay. I did not plan to give private school teachers and their students laptop computers. They're privileged enough. That's why they go to private schools. If they want to benefit from this, they should come to public schools. That's where we operate our free education program.
Okay then. Newly recruited firefighters and paramedics.
Oh yes, newly recruited firefighters and paramedics, they should be ready to go any women from now. On my way here, I know that the fire engines, the new fire engines and the new ambulances are just being delivered in the state. So that's what we were waiting for. There's no point just keeping them without the tools to work.
All right, that settles all the text messages that we have here. Okay, I guess you have a question.
Kola, I want to take the governor back on the issue of the call and shift allowance, because the stoppage has started affecting some other sectors of health in Ekiti State. For example, if you go to the public hospitals after 4 now, there is tendency that if a patient wants to pay, there won't be any almoner on duty to collect money.
There won't be any?
Almoner, people are in charge of payment and issuing of receipt, because of the fact that they don't receive the shift allowance again. And also learned that most of the hospitals are in darkness.
How can that be? How can that be?
People believe that maybe the hospitals are not well funded. But on the issue of call and shift allowance, it has started affecting some parts of the health sector, because some people are no longer where they're supposed to be because of the fact that they don't receive the shift allowance any longer. So that is why I think maybe the governor still want to have...
Well, I'm pretty familiar with this, and I'm familiar with those who have been agitating for it as well. What I've said to you is what obtains. If you're qualified for shift duty allowance, we would pay you. Those who are not qualified, it would be difficult for us to change. It's not Fayemi's policy. If you don't do shift, why do you want to earn shift duty allowance? There are some nurses that don't do shift. They just do regular hours, maybe 8 to 3 like other civil servants. If we do it for them, then we'll be obliged to also pay those who are in the civil service and go to work at 8 in the morning and leave at 4 in the afternoon, which is not a shift duty. It's just their regular standard hours. But I will look into the issue of darkness that you've raised, because I don't think it's necessarily true, but I would investigate it. This year, you would have seen adverts in the papers what we're doing to all the hospitals in the state. So if there are areas where there are gaps, we obviously would also check that out. So.
All right, Rotimi, let's take a final one from you and we draw the curtains on the show.
Mr. Governor, sir, the battle for the acronym APC. Now, the other party have threatened to go to court if anything is done to stop them from getting recognition by your own. They feel that your party is putting everything in place to ensure that they are displaced, and they've threatened to go to court. How do you intend to settle this impasse? APC, the battle for the soul of acronym, APC acronym.
We shall cross that bridge when we get there.
That's just the answer, sir.
That's the answer, and it's Good Friday. Maybe you'd like to pass a message across to Ekiti people, your Easter thoughts, your Easter message to your people.
Well, Kola, we've just spent 40 days of Lent, period of sacrifice, period of giving, a period of reflection, and resurrection is also a time of resuscitation, when hopes that have been lost get resuscitated. And that's the message, really, that our people should keep hope alive. Our people should know that the best is yet to come, and they should do everything: sacrifice, perseverance, hard work, commitment, compassion to our neighbor, and everything that makes us the land of honor are the things that we must continue to promote. And at the end of it all, there's always going to be a reward. Shortcuts, there's no shortcut to progress. We have to just do the right thing. And we all know the difference between good and evil. We know the difference between right and wrong. And we should always stay on the side of the truth. That, for me, is the essence of Easter. That's my message for our people in Ekiti.
All right, Mr. Governor, Your Excellency, we'd like to thank you very much for those very deep words of wisdom. Like the Bible says, only the deep call it unto the deep. And we have gone into the inner recesses of your mind, and you have spoken and inspired our people. And it's on that note that we'd like to draw the curtains on this edition of Meet Your Governor. We'd like to say big thanks to the following gentlemen. Mr. Tayo Ekundayo is Honorable Commissioner for Information and Civic Orientation. Thanks a lot for coming, sir. Mr. Yinka Oyebode is Chief Press Secretary to the Governor. Mr. Shino Awelawa is the Director General of the BSCS. Elder Adewale Ayaga and Mr. Eduwa Debi are members of the board of the BSCS. Mr. Dari Olonfemi is General Manager, Progress FM. Mr. Martin Zayola is GM, Adaba FM, Akure. Mr. Joseph Ogeriaki is Manager, News and Current Affairs, NTA Ado Ekiti. And he is representing the GM of NTA Ado Ekiti. Mr. Wali Ojo is GM EKTV. Mr. Eduwo Gutwashe is his counterpart on radio. And Mr. Babs Teramola is SA Media to the Governor. Rotimi Ojomoyela has been on the panel. He's the chairman of the Correspondence Chapel of the NUJ in Ekiti. Thanks a lot for coming on the program.
Thank you for that.
Ronke Kolawole is from the Nigerian Television Authority. Ronke, thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you too.
And collectively, like we said at the start of the show, at the end now we say thank you, Mr. Governor. It's a privilege to interact with you, and we wish you many more years of service to Ekiti. And eventually, when you get back to the academia like you pledged at the start of the show, more grace to your elbow. Thanks a lot for coming, sir.
Thank you, Kola. The pleasure of my presence here really is mine, not yours. And it's my duty to Ekiti people to always render an account of what we're doing.
Stewardship.
Thank you.
Let's do it together next month by the grace of God. I'm Kola Jimobi. See you then.
You can't get up, you can't stay down. You think this must be the end of the line, but I'm here by your side, holding on, holding tight. Come on friend, let's move on to a higher place. Jello, Oma ki sojo, Chibolu bori ni wa, Ao bori dandan.